Here's Fred Halliday. Fred Halliday is a famous writer on Islam. He's Montague Burton Professor of International Relations at the London School of Economics. He's a Fellow of the British Academy, and he's author of books on Islam. And he was interviewed about the war against terrorism by somebody called Adam Home of the Danish weekly political magazine Opinion. He said, he actually makes a statement, a matter of power, not religion, in his interview. Let me give you some more examples here. In the second question that Home says to Halliday, what is required to stop or minimize the religiously motivated terrorism that we are now witnessing in parts of the West and in many places in the Arab world? Now, in this question, the idea of a distinct form of terrorism is introduced completely effortlessly into the discussion: religious terrorism. This is not just terrorism, this is religious terrorism. Now, how is religious terrorism different from non-religious terrorism? You see, we're falling back here on this essentialized construct that religion and politics are distinct. For Halliday, says, religion provides a means of expressing these conventional political motives. See, it's not real politics, it's just a convenient way of expressing what is really politics. And at one point he says, it is not the religion that determines the political means, it is the political groups of today who select and use religion. Religion is being used to cover up what is really a political act. Now, you could only use this language if you assume that religion and politics are essentially different. That's the way they get mutually excluded. Therefore, their relationship becomes problematic. So you can say, these mullahs, they're really political. They pretend to be religious. Of course, if these terms do not translate into Arabic, then we have a real problem of communication. And I suspect that they don't translate into Arabic. Now, I've given some examples of the way religion and politics are essentialized as distinct kinds of practice. What I think underlies the representation of religions in modern discourse as some very special, set-apart, different kind of practice or experience is the idea of religious experience. Religious experiences are represented as though they are essentially different from other kinds of experiences. You know, he's having a religious experience, probably under a bow tree. I ask you this, though, and I mentioned this example at lunch to some people we were having a discussion. It's perfectly normal in English to use the term religious in the following way. The opera singer is devoted to her art, and she religiously practices the scales every day. That's perfectly normal English. You often hear it. Somebody attends to what they do religiously, meaning they attend to it with enormous attention. You might say with reverence. A carpenter, he applies himself, if he's a craftsman, to his craft with a kind of reverence. He does it religiously. Now, what's the difference between the opera singer who practices the scales religiously every day, and the person who meditates religiously every day. I don't believe there's any essential difference. Not in ordinary language. But this has been turned into a reification. This is religion, but this is non-religion. But I don't think it works in ordinary life. How about dying for one's country? Nationalism. Is nationalism religious or secular? When we salute the flag, is this a religious ritual or just a secular ritual? Why do we need to distinguish? If somebody gives their life in war for their country, we would normally say this is a great sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice. Is that a religious sacrifice or just a secular sacrifice? I'm raising these because I think that they erode our sense of certainty that religion is something special and set apart. Now, this process of reification it's enormous. I mean, it's going through the education systems of the world. The so-called religions of the world in North America by Hopke and Woodward. And you can see it's called Religions of the World, and it's been through 9 editions. And they list the religions as basic religions, Neanderthal religion, Cro-Magnon religion, Neolithic religion, Native American religions, African religions, Hinduism, Jainism, excuse me while I pause for breath, Shinto, Zoroastrian, and so on, Christianity, and down to Baha'i. Now, these religions, what this means is that every society in human history, and indeed in prehistory, regardless of what language they speak, regardless of what general conditions of livelihood they operate, has somehow got what the English language word religion picks out. And this becomes even more astonishing when you consider that the modern discourse on religion can be dated. And that's what I'm going to do. It can be dated in English history, at least, since maybe 1680. But somehow this modern discourse, which has a historical genesis in a particular language, is universalizable, not only in all historical societies, but even in the prehistoric ones. And you can find almost identical lists in other books, and here's another one, Michael, but there are many of them. But the problem is that many societies do not have this distinction between religion and other areas of life. They don't have the terminology for distinguishing between a religious and a non-religious experience, or a religious and a non-religious practice. For example, G. Cooper, who's an expert on Native Americans, says, no tribe has a word for religion as a separate sphere of existence. Religion permeates the whole of life, including economic activities, arts, crafts, and ways of living. Distinctions between natural and supernatural are often difficult to make when assessing Native American concepts. Note that this article is called North American Traditional Religion, and the first thing he says in it is that there is no word for religion in the people's language.